I always thought I knew the rules. You don't mess with your best friend's mom. You don't overstay your welcome. You don't read too much into a glance, or a voice, or the way someone lingers in the doorway. And most of all, you don't let a single night rewrite everything you thought was off limits. But that night did exactly that. It was just supposed to be one night. We got back late from the gym, too late to catch the bus, and my friend told me to crash at his place. No big deal. I slept there before. His mom had always been nice, friendly, polite, distant in that I'm an adult and you're not kind of way. But something felt different this time, even before I stepped through the door. The house was quiet, a little too quiet. Lights low, front porch buzzing with a moth circling the bulb. Inside, it smelled like clean laundry and cinnamon tea. My friend yawned, mumbled something about a shower, and disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone in the hallway with her. She came out of the kitchen in a pale blue robe, tied at the waist. Her hair was clipped up loosely, a few strands falling over one shoulder. She looked surprised to see me still there, but then she smiled, not the casual smile I was used to, but something smaller, more personal. "You're staying over?" she asked. "Yeah, just for the night," I said. "Didn't want to walk home this late." "Well," she said, nodding toward the guest room, "it's all yours." I thanked her and walked in. The room was dim, lit only by the hallway light spilling through the open door. Same couch, same folded blanket, same low hum of the air conditioner. But the air felt different, charged, heavy. She stood in the doorway for a second longer than necessary. Then she said, "Let me know if you need anything," and turned away. The door didn't fully close. A crack remained, just wide enough to see the hallway shadows flicker. I sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing the back of my neck, told myself to chill, told myself to stop replaying that look in her eyes. But I couldn't. The longer I sat there, the louder everything seemed. The ticking of the clock, the soft whir of the fridge down the hall, and my own heartbeat, steady but tense. I lay down, pulled the blanket over my legs, and stared at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I kept hearing her voice in my head, the tone, the subtle pause. I kept seeing the curve of her shoulder under the robe, the way her eyes didn't quite leave mine. It was probably nothing, probably just in my head. But then came the sound that shattered everything. A soft creak outside the room. Not loud, not fast, the kind of careful step you only make when you're trying not to wake someone. I froze. Another step. I closed my eyes, slowly, letting my breathing even out. I wasn't asleep, but I could fake it. I thought maybe it was my friend, maybe he needed something. Maybe he forgot I was there. But the door opened. Not all the way, just enough for her to slip in. I heard the click of it closing behind her. The room stayed dark, but I could feel her presence before I saw it. Bare feet on the carpet, the faint scent of her perfume, vanilla and something warmer. She moved to the side of the couch, and then, in a whisper, calm, deliberate, almost amused, "Don't pretend you're asleep." My eyes opened. Slowly. She was right there. I sat up a little, pulling the blanket up as if that would make a difference. She smiled faintly and set a glass of water on the side table. "I figured you might be thirsty." My throat was too dry to answer. She sat down on the edge of the couch, closer than she needed to. I could hear the hum of the fridge again, the clock ticking. But everything else had vanished. It was just her, me, the silence between us. "I couldn't sleep," she said, looking down at her hands. "Sometimes the house feels too quiet." "Yeah," I said. "I get that." She looked at me then, directly. "You felt it too, didn't you?" I didn't know how to answer, because the truth was yes, I had. And saying no would have been a lie she'd see right through. I don't want this to be a thing, she said. Not unless you want it to be. I swallowed hard. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Her eyes flicked to the ceiling. My friend was moving. We both froze. She stood. You didn't see me tonight, she said. Understand. I nodded. She walked to the door, opened it a crack, then stopped. Without turning around, she said, if you do want to see me, wait until tomorrow morning. I'll be in the kitchen. Early. And then she was gone. I stayed on the couch, staring at the glass of water. The ticking clock felt louder now. Everything felt louder. I wasn't sure if I was afraid or excited, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't sleep. Morning came with sunlight that felt too bright and a silence that carried weight. I hadn't slept. Not really. My body had rested, but my mind had been spinning all night, replaying her voice, her eyes, her words. Don't pretend you're asleep. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a line crossed, a signal, a dare. I walked into the kitchen trying to act normal. She was already there, standing by the window in a soft beige blouse and dark jeans, barefoot, coffee in hand. My friend, her son, sat at the table, scrolling through his phone like it was any other morning. And maybe for him it was, but for me the air felt too still, too sharp. Every sound, the clink of her spoon, the scrape of a chair, rang louder than it should. She looked up at me once, just once, and that was enough. We exchanged no words, but that glance, it burned. I kept my head down, ate toast I couldn't taste, answered questions I barely heard. All I could think about was the weight of what hadn't happened and what still could. Around noon, my friend suggested we hit the gym again. I said sure, buying myself time, but she didn't want me gone for long. I could tell. When we returned, my friend went to shower. I stayed behind to grab water from the fridge, towel slung over my shoulder. I heard her before I saw her. You didn't sleep much, she said from behind me. I turned. She was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, that same robe from last night tied around her waist. No, I said. Did you? She shook her head. Some nights are too full. Full of what? I didn't ask. She stepped closer. Not touching, but closer than casual. This isn't going away, she said quietly. I've tried. The fridge hummed behind me. My throat felt dry. What do you want me to do? I asked. I want to know if you're afraid of it. I didn't get the chance to answer. From upstairs, the loud crash of a bottle hitting tile. Damn it, my friend yelled. Both our heads snapped toward the ceiling. She backed up instantly, smoothing her robe like it was armor. I moved to the hallway just as he stormed downstairs, shirtless, holding his foot and limping slightly. What happened? I asked. Dropped the body wash. Cut my damn foot. Where's the first aid kit? Before I could answer, she stepped in, calm as ever. I've got it, she said, brushing past me and leading him to the bathroom. I stood there, heart pounding, sweat suddenly cold on my back. That was close, too close. When they disappeared, I leaned against the wall and took the deepest breath I'd taken all day. The rest of the afternoon blurred. He played Xbox. She worked in her room. I sat on the patio staring into nothing. When dinner came, she ordered pizza like nothing had happened. We ate, laughed, watched TV. But under the table, her foot brushed mine just once, and stayed there a second too long. Later that night, he fell asleep on the couch mid-movie. I offered to clean up while she helped him to his room. By the time she came back, the lights were low, the house silent again. I was drying my hands when she stepped into the kitchen. You didn't answer me earlier, she said. I turned. About what? Are you afraid of it? I looked at her, at the hallway behind her, at the open living room where he was snoring on the couch. Yeah, I said, but not enough to pretend I don't want it. Her eyes darkened with heat, or doubt, or something more dangerous. You realize what this means? I nodded. If we get caught, it won't just be awkward, she said. It'll ruin everything. I know. A long pause. Then she reached over to the counter and picked something up, a folded piece of paper. She pressed it into my hand. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. If you're serious, come find me. What's this? Where I'll be. Alone. She walked past me, her hand grazing mine as she left. No more words. I opened the note. It was an address. A place I didn't recognize. That was the moment. The choice. I could throw it away. Pretend none of this ever happened. Or I could take the risk that might wreck everything. And I already knew what I was going to do. I kept the note, folded it twice, and slipped it into my wallet like it was some kind of secret code. But I didn't need it. I had memorized the address after the second glance. The rest of the night, I didn't sleep again. At breakfast, I barely looked at her. But every time I did, she was already looking away. She was different now, quieter, more cautious, maybe even a little distant, like she was testing me, waiting to see what I'd do with what she gave me. My friend didn't notice anything. He scrolled, joked, talked about weekend plans like nothing had shifted. But for me, every moment felt heavier. I was carrying something he couldn't see, and the weight was starting to show. When he left to meet someone at the park, I had the house to myself. Except I wasn't alone. She came downstairs 15 minutes later, dressed for the day, white t-shirt, dark jeans, keys in hand. I was standing in the kitchen, pretending to read the messages on my phone. You remember the time? She asked casually. 9, I said. She nodded. Don't be late. Then she left. That was it. No look back. No smile. No hint of what was coming. Just a door closing behind her and the ticking of the wall clock above the stove. I waited until 8:55. Then I grabbed my jacket and walked out. The address led me to a small studio space across town, big windows, neutral blinds, a sign on the door that said private massage therapy in soft gold letters. I stood outside for a full minute before I knocked. She opened the door almost instantly. She was already inside, already waiting. The place smelled like lavender and clean air. There was soft music playing piano, nothing recognizable. She wore a loose button-up shirt and black leggings, barefoot on the warm wooden floor. This is where I work sometimes, she said. Side thing. Few clients a week. No one's scheduled today. I stepped in. She locked the door behind me. No one spoke for a while. We stood there, caught between what we'd already said and what we still hadn't. And then she asked the question I knew was coming. Why did you come? I looked at her. Because if I didn't, I'd regret it. And because you didn't look at me like a mistake. You looked at me like a decision. She breathed out slowly. You think you're ready for this? No, I said. But I'm still here. She moved closer. One step, then another. And when she reached me, her hand brushed the edge of my wrist, a light touch, but it anchored me. I don't get to have many things for myself, she said. Everything's always been about my son, or my job, or what's right. And then you showed up in my house all grown, and looking at me like I was still seen. That was the moment it stopped being a game. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the note, held it in my palm for a second, then tore it in half. Then again. Then again. Tiny paper pieces scattered onto the floor between us. You already know I came, I said. I don't need a backup plan. Her face changed then. Something softened. Something gave in. She stepped even closer, close enough that I could hear her breath change. But just before she could say anything, her phone rang. The sound shattered the moment. Loud, jarring. She turned to silence it, saw the name, and froze. Her son. She didn't answer, just watched it ring until it stopped. "He never calls me in the middle of the day," she said quietly. "You should call him back." She shook her head. If something was wrong, he'd text too. The silence returned, but it felt different now, fractured. She walked to the window, pulled one of the blinds down slightly, and peeked out. Then she turned to me. "I don't want to do this in the dark," she said. "Not hiding, not sneaking. I don't want to lie to him either," I said. "But we're already doing that." Her eyes found mine. "Then let's at least stop lying to ourselves." I didn't respond. I just crossed the room and reached for her hand. And this time she didn't pull away. She didn't ask me to stay. And I didn't ask if I could. But neither of us moved toward the door. Not for a long time. We sat in the quiet, our hands still barely touching, the air between us thicker than before. Outside, the city went on, cars passed, wind stirred trees, life stayed normal. But inside that studio the world had tilted. What had started as silence was now full of meaning. Then she leaned in. No hesitation, no teasing, just a single, deliberate kiss. And it told me everything words couldn't. It wasn't soft. It wasn't rushed. It was real. And once it started, I stopped thinking about lines, rules, or consequences. I just let it happen. Because some moments don't wait for permission. They just arrive, and either you meet them or you miss them. Later, as we sat side by side on the floor, her legs pulled up, her head resting lightly against my shoulder, she said, "I don't know what this is yet." "I don't either," I told her. "But I don't want it to be nothing." "It's not." And we left it at that. A week passed. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned down. I saw my friend twice, once for lunch, once at the gym. He laughed at my terrible form, asked if I was seeing anyone, joked about me being off the radar lately. I lied, and it didn't feel good. But it didn't feel wrong either. She and I didn't talk every day. There were no constant texts, no late-night calls. But when we did see each other, it was never random. It was intentional. Once, 4 days after the studio, she passed me in the grocery store. We didn't speak. But as she walked past, she slipped something into the inside pocket of my jacket. When I got home, I pulled it out. A note, just 5 words. Thursday, same time. No fear. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was something. And the more I saw her, the more I realized that it wasn't just about the thrill. It was about being seen fully, honestly, without pretending. She looked at me like I wasn't a mistake. Like I wasn't too young, too close to home, too dangerous. She looked at me like I was a risk worth taking. The last time I went to her studio, it was raining. Hard. Thunder low in the distance, water streaking down the tall windows. When I stepped inside, she didn't say a word. She just walked up to me, took my hand, and placed it flat over her heart. It was racing, and I knew she was scared, but she didn't let go. Neither did I. Now, every Thursday morning, I wake up before my alarm. I tell my friend I've got early class, throw on a hoodie, and bike to that same place on the edge of town. She always gets there before me. The lights are always on. The music's always playing. And the blinds stay open now, because we're done hiding. Last week, as I left, she stood in the doorway, hair loose, sunlight behind her, coffee mug in both hands. She didn't say anything, but in the steam curling from her cup, I could see my reflection clear, steady, real.